Dark Phoenix, even though I enjoyed it enough, I think it's probably a guilty pleasure movie, or it will become one eventually when it's released on DVD and that. The film is a financial flop, and it will not be, and it is a dark stain on the 20-year franchise that was the X-Men over at Fox. And with sparks coming out of interviews that the cast are out promoting the film, and they're no longer under contract because they're no longer going to be used, because obviously when Disney makes their own X film, because they're not going to be calling it X-Men, because they've already stated that X-Men is an outdated name and they don't like it, and they're probably going to go like X-People or Mutants or some garbage like that. They are no longer under contract. They're not going to use these actors, so they're just saying what it is. And James McAvoy, the person who's played Professor X since First Class, has let it slip that Dark Phoenix had an alternate ending that was done before the reshoots. And anybody following along with the X-Men franchise, last year was when Dark Phoenix was actually supposed to be released. It was changed and moved because of reshoots. And last year was also around a time when Disney was starting to buy Fox. The deal didn't go through until this year, but last year everything was already in play and Disney was starting to move things around. The reshoots for Dark Phoenix were made because they were too similar to Captain Marvel. Now, Fox wouldn't have cared if their movie was similar to an MCU movie that came out before it, because, oh, look, the MCU's copying us. Ha, ha, ha. They wouldn't have cared. But with the movie being moved backwards and being after that, they had to have changed it because Disney would want their films to be more, liked and more fresher and not something copied. And some people are pointing out that the villains in Dark Phoenix are very similar to the Skrull. Now, the Skrulls are characters like Quicksilver, who was also removed from Dark Phoenix. If you noticed how Days of Future Past and Apocalypse both had those Quicksilver scenes everybody loved and people talked about. And this film, spoiler alert, Quicksilver is barely in the movie. He has his leg broken and that's it. He has one tiny scene which looks like it might be a Quicksilver scene in the beginning. His leg's broken, and you don't see him again for the rest of the movie. So, but if you think about it, the MCU already has their Quicksilver. They want people to forget about this one, because people liked this one better. People were all constantly saying how this one is better actor, better done with the Quicksilver speed thing and everything. But Disney and the MCU already has their Quicksilver, so they do not want this one touching anything. That is why the last film, or the last two appearances of this character, built up to him telling Magneto that, hey, you're my dad, and then nothing. I'm pretty sure they probably shot a scene like that, and it was just deleted. Because the entire third act of Dark Phoenix was reshot and redone. Instead of going up into space and battling the aliens, they did it on a train on Earth. And it's like, this film felt like something like Suicide Squad, where you could tell that heavy editing was done to it. It's decent enough if you're putting your mind off and you're just sitting there and you might be doing something else. But if you are paying attention at all and you are like focusing on the story, you can tell there are some heavy cuts to it. And also it came out because the director and the producers of this film have stated that Dark Phoenix was actually supposed to be 2 films, but Fox did not want to do a 2-parter. They wanted to have it be one story. So they had to go back and take the script and alter it to be 2 films. Or it'd be 1 film instead of 2. And it was interviewed on like places like IndieWire. Like, you can type into Google about Dark Phoenix, and a lot of people are talking about it because obviously the interviews are popping up and it's a big story now because the X-Men franchise is going out with a whimper. It's not going out with a big light. And also, what I was talking about earlier, the backlash about this film. Sorry, there some moron started talking. But when you had this film last year, people were talking about this one and New Mutants both not even being released in theaters when Disney bought out Fox, how they were going to either just release it straight to DVD, put it on Disney Plus, or at a time just Disney streaming service, or just not release these movies at all and let them be like the Snyder Cut and you never see the light of day. And just be some urban legend that no one talks about. Or something like Dumbo 2, which you see on the old VHS copies and the original DVD release of Dumbo, that, there was going to be a sequel, and they had all this work done, they had the animatics for it, and they had some music for it, and they had a first look for it on the release of it, but then the film was not released. Never was. And that was going to be the fate of these two films. And now New Mutants even has more reshoots going on because they originally didn't want the horror tone that the guy was making on it for. And then people saw the trailer and they all liked the horror tone, so now they got to go back and do more reshoots so it's the way they want it. The studio wants it, but it's not. But it's also the way the fans want it. The studio didn't like the original done, but that's what the trailer was based off of. And then, but now the studio doesn't. The studio sees the audience like the trailer, but we still don't want them having the one we made. So it's all a bit confusing. It's just something about along the lines that makes me think that Disney, because they're not doing X-Men for Phase 4 anytime soon, because the films they've announced are like Ant-Man 3, Doctor Strange 2, Black Panther 2, Ant-Man 3, and Black Widow's movie, and the Eternals. So X-Men are nowhere on their radar, even though they kind of knew if they were getting Fox, lock, stock, and barrel, because Disney was going after it, and no one else was going to get it. Disney wanted it. They wanted it for the X-Men franchise. They wanted it to have all of Star Wars because they didn't have the original 3, or they didn't have episode 4. That's right. They had the rest of it though, and they did it for Avatar, and they did it for the other smaller franchise that they have, because they do own stuff like Alien and Predator. They do own stuff like Planet of the Apes, which Disney is all going to be trying to rework to make them like TV shows and that. But, they do have franchises that are well known, just not like really well known. So, do you think Dark Phoenix would have been better if it had the original alternate ending with them going into space and finding the aliens? Do you think there's any stick or any hold to this rumor that the aliens in Dark Phoenix were originally supposed to be the Skrull? And I can see them definitely changing it because we just had the Skrull in Captain Marvel. How come there's nothing like it? How come there's nothing like this one from X-Men? And then people would look and see, okay, the Skrulls aren't this allegory for refugees. They're actually villains, just like the Kree villains, because, they're both villains who just hate each other. Not one's a villain and one's an allegory for refugees. Do you think there's any truth to what I'm thinking, that Quicksilver was removed because Disney saw a way that, we can get people to forget about this Quicksilver because Apocalypse came out in 2016. So if they don't do another one they don't touch X-Men for another couple of years, and they just reintroduce a new one, or they reintroduce their old one, because, the snapping and all that kind of crap with time, with Spider-Man, the sequel one coming out, them saying there's alternate realities, maybe their Quicksilver is a part of the X-Men of the alternate reality that gets connected to this Earth, or some BS like that. Comment down below, like, dislike, subscribe, unsubscribe. Until the apocalypse gets its way, YouTube is still a free platform. Have a good one. Funny thing, other people are starting to notice this too, because if you Google Dark Phoenix just that by itself, the first thing to pop up is actually this image, because I originally was Googling, I was going to Google Dark Phoenix, and then grab the poster, and then Google Captain Marvel, grab its poster, make my own little thing. Then I found this image because it was the first story. And the first story is Comic Book News talking about how was Dark Phoenix changed because of Captain Marvel. And then places like What Culture and the stupid Indie Mogul and that, whatever that's, Looper, and all the other places are covering these stories about, okay, were the Skrulls originally the villains in the original cut of Dark Phoenix? Or was these characters cut for this reason? Or was these characters reduced for this reason? Or why was this character not in it? Why did this plot line change? Why did they kill this person? And we might actually see the alternate ending of Dark Phoenix, just not for a long time. Like, when Disney is releasing its X-Men film, they could release something like the Richard Donner cut, but for this movie, and it would be in a box set of all of the X-Men films, X1, United, Last Stand, Wolverine, Origins, Logan, Deadpool 1, 2, and First Class, Days of Future Past, Apocalypse, and this, and it'd say because they have a X-Men 1.5 and an extended cut of 2, because those were released on DVD, and I actually have those. I got them from Target years ago in a double feature before Last Stand came out. And they have the Rogue cut, and now they'll have Dark Phoenix, like Space Cut or Original Cut or whatever they're going to call it, and they'll just put that out like they did for Spider-Man. When Homecoming was coming out, they put out Spider-Man, the editor's cut for Spider-Man 3, because everybody was constantly wanting to see the original Spider-Man 3 or the alternate versions of it, because there are lots of pictures floating around of alternate takes, alternate scenes, alternate characters of that film. It's like at some point we'll probably get the Shailene Woodley Amazing Spider-Man 2 scenes in the film. If a movie franchise sees people's interest in these alternate takes, we'll eventually get them. It's like, I don't know, it took them, 40 years or something like that to release the Richard Donner cut. And last year we just got the director's cut of Wrath of Khan. So maybe at some point we will get these answers of what the movie could have been, or what the differences were, because they'll do some kind of like behind the scenes thing, and the director will be interviewed and the writer, and they'll say, oh yeah, we got an interview when Fox was being bought. I remember those, and yeah, when Fox was being bought out, they told us we had to change it because it was too closely relatable to the MCU, and they really didn't want that because they wanted to make their own X-Men. They wanted people to forget about ours, so we had to make this one really bad, and they had to release this film because of contracts, and we already paid these actors these things. We got to try to get some money back for it. So you never know. I mean, they did shell all this money for this movie, but if you notice, at least in my area in South Florida, I haven't seen a single ad for it on TV. I haven't seen any ads for it, like posters or commercials. Hell, I wouldn't even know this movie was out if it wasn't for the internet. So they're not really putting that much ad space into this film. So that's a little add-on to the end of the other video. Sorry for the noise from this radio. People are being very inconsiderate with me, and the battery is dying now because it's been on for 16 hours. So once again, have a good one. And what do you think of Dark Phoenix? Was it better than Captain Marvel? Me, I think Dark Phoenix was better than Captain Marvel. That's just my opinion. Have a good one.